Welcome back. Fantasy Sports Today on SportsGrid. Thanks for tuning in. 9 o'clock on the East, 8 o'clock Central. This is FST, Fantasy Sports Today. Craig Mish, along with George Kurtz. We have another fantasy show coming your way tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern. It's Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker. So thanks for waking up with us this morning. Sam is our producer today, as always. And let's go to the Sunday daily fantasy slate. We'll start off, as we always do, at wide receiver. Mike Evans, the highest priced wide receiver this week at 7,900. A.J. Brown at 7,500. Cortland Sutton, 6,600. This is the price I don't get. I know I'm biased with Washington, but somebody explain to me why McLaurin is 1,100 less than A.J. Brown. I don't know, or 1,000 less than A.J. Brown. You'll explain that one to me, George. Devonta Smith, 5,700. All of a sudden, maybe the Packers wide receivers are in play now that we know that Watson is not going to play. He's 5,500, so maybe Reed is actually an option. Dobbs could easily get 3 touchdowns on Sunday, but I'm not going to buy him at 5,400. We've talked about this all year, how it's a little bit of a crapshoot with Green Bay's wide receivers, George, but Reed would seem to be a pretty big beneficiary of the injury to Watson.
I'm not playing that game. I'm just not. For multiple reasons, or a couple of reasons here. One, as you already mentioned here, maybe it's Reed, maybe it's Dobbs, maybe it's Wicks, maybe it's all through Josh Jacobs. I don't know. Maybe it's the tight ends. I'm not doing it. Green Bay has not looked all that good of late here. They haven't played a great offense, and Philadelphia's defense is good. All right, so no, I'm going to eliminate pretty much all my Packers here. I'm not going to do it here. I completely agree with you about McLaurin. He's an easy start for me. One, because he's cheaper. Two, because that Tampa Bay secondary is a mess. All right, it's truly a mess. They have injuries up the wazoo here of who's going to play, who's not here. Remember Jordan Whitehead, he got to the car accident last week before the game, so he's out here. But I said they have all sorts of injuries. I keep saying I think this is the fun game. All right, Jamel Dean is questionable. Winfield, questionable. Mike Edwards, questionable. These are all starters, by the way. Do I think they're going to play? Probably at least 2 out of 3. Whitehead's definitely not going to play. They have other injuries. Hall, Hill, both out. Izzy and out. So they have all sorts of problems with Tampa Bay secondary. I think Washington's going to score some points in this game. Like I said, it's the fun game here. McLaurin definitely goes for me. Sutton, Brown, I could see Brown was probably too high for me. Mike Evans, by the way, we all love Mike Evans. But he's going up against Marshawn Lattimore. That generally has not gone all that well for Evans in the past, and these two do not like each other whatsoever. Sort of a matchup to watch this weekend here. So I don't think I'll be paying up for Evans here. I'm going to go with McLaurin and probably lesser guys.
All right. I do like someone off our Tier 2 list. I want to go over this too. Khalil Shakir is 5,300. Jalen McMillan, 5,200. The name I like here is actually Mims at 5,100. He's been way more a part of the offense than I anticipated. Cooper is 4,900. Of course, Watson is out. Keon Coleman, 4,600. And then, as you mentioned, another name, Wicks, is a possibility at 4,500.
Yes, see, since we went a little cheaper here, if you go McLaurin route, you can afford to pay up for the guys at the top of this list here. I love Shakir and McMillan. Love them both here. Sounds like a good law firm, Shakir and McMillan. But I love both these guys top of this list. Shakir is a sort of a catching machine here, right? Catches a lot of balls. Touchdowns, not so much. If you're looking for the touchdown here, he may not be your guy. McMillan is the guy for touchdowns, right? He's got, I think, 7 of the last 5 games. He's been fantastic here. And if all the attention is going Evans' way, well, that opens things up for McMillan. One thing I might be a little wary of, if, and this is a huge if, by the way, but if Washington thinks that Lattimore can lock up Evans one-on-one, well, then they can focus more bracket coverage towards McMillan. Once again, it's something to think about here. Lattimore hasn't played. He's played like once since they acquired him. So I don't know how healthy he's going to be. Can he play a full complement with the snaps? I don't know. We'll find out during the game here. But I like McMillan and Shakir a whole bunch from this list.
All right, and then we have the Tier 3 wide receivers. Zacchaeus has been a bigger part of Washington's offense, so maybe he is a potential option. There's actually some lower-end options here that may end up scoring. Vele, 4,100. Mac Hollins is an end zone threat for Buffalo, 3,800. Malik Heath, 3,600. Dotson, 35. De'Ami Brown, 34. And kind of crazy that Crowder's still in the NFL and does catch a few passes a game at 3,400, but unlikely to see the end zone.
Once again, I'm just going game script for me. I think that Washington Tampa Bay game tomorrow night is going to be fun. All right, I think points are going to go up on the board. I think they're going to hit their over. So Zacchaeus, the first guy that comes to mind. But if you can't afford him, I don't mind a little dartboard on De'Ami Brown. All right, so it's definitely one of the Commanders' wide receivers here for me. Zacchaeus would be my first choice. De'Ami Brown is second. And he's like Crowder. He's sort of like a very poor man Shakir, though. I might think he might catch some balls, but touchdowns probably not. I think Brown and Zacchaeus would have a better shot at that.
All right, so let's pivot over and try and figure out what we're going to do at running back here. And definitely, I would say, very solid 4 or 5 options to begin. Saquon Barkley is one of the highest priced players in the entire weekend. He's 8,500 for Philadelphia, followed by Jacobs, 7,700 for the Packers. Have a feeling that Bucky Irving is going to be the most used running back. I mean, look at his price, 7,000. He's been fantastic for them. But, George, that's the kind of thing where if you're playing head-to-head, maybe so. But in a tournament, I would feel his usage is going to be very high. Cook, 6,700. And I think I'd consider Robinson at 5,800. But the rest of this list is fairly weak here. Javonte Williams is a hope every week and doesn't seem to deliver, 5,100. Rachaad White, maybe a goal line carrier to 5,000.
I'm going with James Cook. I think the game plan tomorrow for the Bills is going to be Cook. All right. Well, Allen, of course, but Cook and Allen here. I think it's going to be the game plan here, how to attack this defense here. They're very good at the screen passes here. Cook's had a fantastic season. That's who I'm going with. I wouldn't touch Robinson with a 90-foot pole. He has been awful of late. He keeps getting replaced in these games. All right, he is the starting running back, and he doesn't get anything done. And they're going with Eckler, Rodriguez. Hell, they might break out John Riggins out of retirement here. So no, I'm not going anywhere near Robinson. As someone who had him on his fantasy team at the end of a couple of fantasy teams at the end of the season, that didn't work out well at all. Very disappointing there, not touching Robinson. But Cook is the guy I'm looking at here, and I agree with you about Irving. By the way, a lot of people are going to sort of select down to him. I would select down to Cook. That's why I'm going one below. I think this dive is I think it's really going to be built through James Cook tomorrow for the Buffalo Bills.
All right, and now some other options at running back, and these are the tier 2 options, players that aren't necessarily going to see a lot of playing time, so you'd be guessing here. Emmanuel Wilson, 4,900. Jaleel McLaughlin, 4,900. Eckler has been hurt and phased out of Washington's offense, 4,800. Ray Davis, maybe, possibly, 4,700. Gainwell, 4,600. And then we have a couple of options below that of players who generally are not playing all that much. Is there a dart throw here, George, for you? Is there a running back that you could see stealing a touchdown? Is it Davis at 4,700? Is it McLaughlin, who I got to tell you at times looks a lot better than Javonte Williams? Sometimes he's a much more a part of that game plan too, which is why he's only 200 less than Javonte.
I think if you're looking at this list, you either have to go to McLaughlin or Eckler because they will play. Right, these are not just guys. I mean, Wilson's only going to play when Jacobs needs a rest, right? I am somewhat interested in Davis as well, but I do think it funnels through Cook. But Davis will get a series here and a series there to play. Maybe you get lucky and he gets into the end zone. That's what we're looking for here. Who could get into the end zone here? I think it's your guy. I think it's McLaughlin is that guy I'm probably going to have to go with because I think he, as you said, he's played better than Javonte at times here. We haven't seen a lot from Estime. It's a crapshoot because I think with Denver, it's whichever running back's playing better at that time. Is it Javonte? Is it McLaughlin? Is it Estime? So you sort of have a 33% chance. They may be slightly higher with McLaughlin. I think McLaughlin's the guy I would roll the dice with.
All right, fair enough. We got a lot of other options to go over here. We actually, I think, if I was going to pay for one of these, McLaughlin, maybe. I think that I'd pass. Show me the first one, Sam. I think what I would do is if I'm playing head-to-head, I'd use Bucky Irving. If I'm playing in a tournament, I'm going Jacobs at 7,700 because I just know that he is the guy for the Packers. Like, that's a foregone conclusion. They don't even take him out of the game, basically. So 7,700 for me there. And then on the second list, I think that I would go and throw my dart at Ray Davis. I think that's what I would do. Hopefully get the goal line carry, something like that. All right, so now coming up next, we'll do tight ends, and we'll also play the quarterbacks on the Sunday slate in Daily Fantasy. You're watching Fantasy Sports Today. Craig Mish and George Kurtz. We'll be right back.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. We're taking a look at the daily fantasy slate for the upcoming weekend. In the wildcard round of the National Football League, let's start off with the Sunday slate. These are the tight ends as George and I continue, so get ready to get some players in. Zach Ertz, 4,300, highest priced tight end on Sunday, followed by Cade Otton of Tampa Bay at 4,100, Dalton Kincaid, 4,000. Dallas Goedert, 3,900, Tucker Kraft has scored a bunch of touchdowns for the Packers this season. He's 3,700. Payne Durham is 3,100. And then Dawson Knox, the backup tight end on Buffalo, is 3,000. So, George, is this a matter of paying up? It seems like Ertz's price is high because the slate is weak at tight end. At least that's my view here.
Yeah, it's incredibly weak here. I mean, this is awful. I mean, that being said, all right, if you're looking at fantasy points given up, the Tampa Bay defense does give up the second most points to tight ends this season. All right, so I guess that's enough for me to say I'm going with Zach Ertz here. I'll pay up for 4,300. Otton really hasn't done much since Mike Evans came back, right? He just hasn't been that guy. Dalton Kincaid, just a bust this season. I know I lost a ticket on him for over 6.5 touchdowns. That didn't happen. Dallas Goedert coming back from injury here. He's someone I'm sort of interested in here, especially if either A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith is not up to speed. Tucker Kraft, now we're getting into dart throws. Tucker Kraft, I sort of like if I need to save money. Anybody else, I mean, Dawson Knox for 3,000, you need him to get to the end zone. He's not going to get a whole bunch of catches here. I think I'm just forced. I'm forced here, Craig. I got to pay up for Zach Ertz.
All right, so yeah, for me, I think it's similar. It's just such a weak slate. You know, Otton, I guess, is the only one to consider here. You're not going to get any points out of any of these tight ends. I mean, Goddard, you're absolutely taking a huge risk here at 3,900. Kraft could be a touchdown or a zero. Tough one for me. I think that I'll go Otton. Yeah, that's the direction I'll go. I'll save the 300 because I think Otton and Ertz are similar. So I'll go Otton there. All right, now at quarterback, of course, Josh Allen is going to be the highest priced player on Sunday. But is this the same strategy, George, where you know you're getting fantasy points from a quarterback, so you want to save a little money? You go down to Daniels. He's at 7,500. Jalen Hurts is 7,300 coming off the concussion. Boy, Baker Mayfield only 6,800 in this matchup. You could save 1,400 and use Baker here. Bo Nix is 6,300. And I got to tell you, I do like Jordan Love and I like the matchup. I don't like hearing at practice this week him in the media saying that his elbow hurts. Like, I don't know. That seems to be a little bit of a bad sign for me, so I cannot pull the trigger there. It would have to be one of the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this list here. I'd stop with Knicks. And Knicks, boy, like, I don't know what that environment's going to be like for him in Buffalo. And he's been prone to throwing picks lately, too.
Yeah, and I mean, my first inclination was to go Baker Mayfield because we know he does the same thing almost every week. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. But the problem with Baker Mayfield is you're going to be behind the 8 ball because Allen, Daniels, Hurts, Knicks, they're all going to run the football. They're going to have rushing yards, right? Allen's going over 40 yards. Daniels probably over 60 yards. Hurts, especially with the tush push too, he's going to get in the end zone. Although I do wonder if maybe the tush push doesn't come into play. With the concussion, maybe they'll just want to give the ball to Barkley and let him get it in. We'll see here. And Bo Nix runs the ball as well here. So it's sort of the game I'm going to play, Craig. Do I need to say how much money do I need to save? If I don't need to save money, then I'm going to go one of the other guys here. I don't know if I'd go Daniels. As much as I'm worried about Nix with the being a rookie, Daniels is the same thing. Although I think he's fine. So I really do want to pay up for Allen. Because we know it's going to funnel through him. He's going to throw the ball. He's going to run the ball. He's going to get to the end zone. He does every damn week here. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford him to get the other guys in that I want to get in. But I'm okay with using, like I said, any of the top 4. I'm not going as low as Knicks, although I do like him. I have a funny feeling, though, for me, it's going to be Mayfield. All right, because I know what he's going to do here. I'm going to eat it as far as the rushing yardage is concerned, but I'm going to need to save that money.
Yeah, my narrative all year is Washington. So I think if I used McLaurin at 6,500, I think I would go with Daniels there, and that's like irrespective of them winning the game at all. But I just think that that's such a good quarterback wide receiver stack. You can't play that with Allen. With Mayfield, if you were to do 6,800, I don't know that you can stack Evans, George, because the price is so high. But you mentioned McMillan as a possibility as a third wide receiver there, right?
Yeah, McMillan will be the guy I'd look at there, and he's was he 5,200, I believe he was. So that would be he's scoring touchdowns just as many as Evans of late as well. McMillan's a decent wide receiver. He's not Chris Godwin, but he's a decent wide receiver.
Yeah. All right. Before we get back into the games this weekend, George, lots of interviews going on in the NFL for coaches this week. We heard Pete Carroll's name maybe back in the mix. All of a sudden, Mike Vrabel has been the hot name as far as head coaches are concerned. In any particular situation you're watching? Because I feel like this week, we're going to, usually after the wild card week is done, this week is like big hiring week. I think we're going to get a couple done this week.
Yeah, probably because now we can have the other guys have interviews as well. I mean, listen, I'm the Cowboy fan. All right, so what are we doing, Jerry? All right, are we keeping McCarthy? Are we getting rid of McCarthy? I mean, his window of exclusivity ends at the 14th. If they don't sign him by then he can go talk to other teams here. So that's the one, of course, that I'm watching here. And I'm very curious to see not only does Ben Johnson get hired, but does he want to leave Detroit this year? Right, he's been the hot guy, at least now for a couple of seasons, but he's looking for that perfect opportunity, which I don't blame him for. But sooner or later, these jobs dry up, or you don't have the year, your team doesn't have the year it's had here, and you're not the hot guy anymore. So I'm wondering if this will be the year or the week, per se, that Johnson finally does get or takes that head coaching job.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I'm watching. I think that, for me, I just think the Raiders situation, as we talked about earlier in the show, is fascinating. No GM, no coach. You have Tom Brady maybe pulling some strings there. And say what you want about the Raiders and their immaculate dysfunction, which seems to be the case, it's still Las Vegas. And it's still a major franchise in sports. Whoever gets that job has an opportunity to run with it. Like, I know what happened to Gruden the last time there. I thought Gruden was going to end up being the coach of the Raiders for another 10 years. That didn't happen. All right, we'll preview all the games this weekend in Wildcard Weekend. We'll have our picks and some props as well. You're watching Fantasy Sports Today on SportsGrid. Craig Mish, along with George Kurtz. We'll be right back.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one, Steve?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're gonna go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's gonna help me get the job done. There is not gonna be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. Game one of Wildcard weekend. Chargers and Texans going at it. Texans have played on Saturdays in the NFL. It feels like for years, George, they took that year or two off to rebuild. They got C.J. Stroud. They came back strong. Actually looked really good last year. Chargers are that team, kind of like Houston last year, where they disappeared for a while and now have returned. My favorite play of all of these is probably over on McConkey's yards. I think on FanDuel you can get minus 140 on 70 and a little plus money on 80. So those would be my two favorite plays. Under 41.5, I guess. I don't have a good feel for who's going to win this. I feel like taking Houston and being the contrarian on this game. Again, we've talked about it. I talked about it all week long on Newswire. No one is taking Houston. That scares the you-know-what out of me. And why? And if that's the case, why is the line only 3? And by the way, it's been 3, 2.5 all week long. It feels like the Chargers are the right side here, but I can't pull the trigger on that. So under or McConkey would be my favorites from this game.
Yeah, the under keeps going down too at 41.5. So people are expecting a Charger, pretty much a 20-17 game, somewhere around there. That's what they're playing here. I'm on the Chargers. I think they do win the game. I think they cover, but I'm the first person to admit. What do we say? 99% are on the same thing, so that does worry me as well here. There's one thing about this about Houston. They can actually pencil this on their schedule, pen it in on their schedule. 4:30 Saturday Wildcard weekend, because that's when they're going to play. All right, every week, year it's the same thing here. They're going to get that game. Chargers defense is playing well. Justin Herbert's playing well here. Houston just is not. All right, it's Nico Collins. It's Joe Mixon. C.J. Stroud does not look good. All right, and there's not much else there in the offense. There's just not much else there. So, listen, weird things could happen. Maybe Herbert's turning the ball over. Maybe the run game's dead. They're third and long constantly, and mistakes are going on here. But I do like Houston to win this game.
Yeah. So you said the Chargers to win the game, I thought. You just pivoted.
See, this is these. No, Chargers to win. I don't have Houston doing anything. Chargers to win. I think Chargers are going to give Kansas City a problem next week, too, by the way. That wouldn't shock me if they win that either.
Yeah, so I'll go under and I'll go McConkey here. Okay, so the second game on the board here is the one that, I think earlier in the season, it would not surprise anyone to say that there's going to be a third game between the Steelers and the Ravens played. But historically speaking, when these two teams play, it's always been plus minus 3 points, 2.5, You take the dog. It comes down to the end. Tucker kicks a field goal or misses a field goal, and whoever has the ball last wins. The point spread is pushing 10 in this game between these two teams. And the comparison that I made to the Steelers, George, is another team from Pennsylvania a year ago, which was the hottest team in the NFL to start the season last year, were the Philadelphia Eagles. You could make the case that the Steelers, in a different way, were winning a lot of games. They looked like they were not just playoff bound, but division bound. They are the team that's struggling more than any other team going into the playoffs. So that is the question. Is this a matter of, like the Eagles a year ago, the Steelers are the cold team heading to the playoffs? I mean, I've heard some people say, this is crazy, the Ravens win like 41-3. Like, they kill them on Sunday. It's hard for me to fathom this with this series.
As you said, the numbers tell you over and over again this will be a close game. Although the last time they did play, which was a couple of weeks ago, it was I think Baltimore won by 2 touchdowns. Baltimore wins the game. All right, that I'm sure about. So as I talked about earlier, I certainly want to include them in a teaser here. And same thing with take Buffalo. I just can't find that third team or a total I like here, or I should say love here. But they win the game. The question is, will they cover the 9.5? I sort of even though the numbers tell us they won't, I sort of lean to, I think this game could get out of hand. I do think the Pittsburgh offense looks bad. It just looks bad. There's not much going on. What are we hanging our hat on? You're right. George Pickens looks awful here. The running game is so at best here. Freiermuth looks good. All right. I might like his all totals over 50 yards, by the way. So I might like Freiermuth here, but that's it. That's all I like here. So once again, and I've a little flip-flop during the week on this as well. As of this morning, I'm sort of on Baltimore, sort of a blowout Baltimore. I think the only way Pittsburgh covers is a late garbage time touchdown, which of course could happen.
Yeah, I like under in this one too. I know it's not fun, but 43.5. Again, Baltimore would have to do this one by themselves. Some question: would they go to Fields in a game like this if Russell Wilson struggled a lot over the last month? Still remains to be seen. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back and preview the Broncos and Bills next. Don't go away.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. All right, so now we've gotten through Saturday. Let's dive into the Sunday games in the National Football League before we get over to our next show here at 10 o'clock. So let's try and burn through these here. Broncos and Bills. Boy, hard to find a position for me to take the Denver Broncos. I give them a lot of credit, man. I did not see them winning as many games as they did. A little concerning for me to see their record against good teams. They were so bad last year. They had a pretty easy schedule. Knicks also, for me, George, has sort of gone the other way a little the last few weeks, throwing a bunch of picks. Buffalo has been a machine for the most part. It seems like they've been sleepwalking through some of these games at the end of the year. I don't expect that, though, on Sunday. I think this is one of those games where Denver certainly, I feel like they're up against it. The sort of the way that I play this out, George, is maybe Denver gets the ball, they score first, 3-0, something like that. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, Broncos are going to win and cover. Buffalo has just been a menace in the second half of games in the NFL this season, so I'll just take the Bills and go about my business here.
Yeah, but Buffalo wins the game. All right, I don't think there's any doubt about that. The question is, do they cover the 8.5? I lean yes that they do cover it. I think Denver's going to be annoying in this game. You look at Bo Nix. His last 4 games, he's thrown 12 touchdown passes. That's fantastic. 4 interceptions. Okay, that's so-so. But 3 of those came in one game against Indianapolis. All right, he threw none last week. 1 against Cincinnati the week before here, and he was fantastic against the Chiefs last week. Yes. The Chiefs were playing their backups. They didn't care. Maybe they didn't even want to win to make sure Cincinnati didn't get in. I get all that. But still, once again, he's played well. He's running the football with his legs here. So I'm certainly interested in that prop as far as that's concerned. Probably in Cortland Sutton as well. It's probably all I'm going with Denver. With Buffalo, yeah, Josh Allen, give me Cook. And Shakira is a guy I'm going to like as far as that's concerned. And him, not going to be touching any Amari Cooper props there tomorrow. Buffalo wins the game here. I think they do cover, but I don't think this is an easy blowout. I don't think this is 41-3 or anything like that. This game, Buffalo scored over 30 points in 7 of 8 home games this year, so they're likely to get right around 30. So I have it something like 28-20, which means they don't quite cover. So it's a little scary for me, Craig, which is why, once again, I like the teaser for Buffalo much better.
Okay, fair enough. So we're both on the Bills in this one. I think we're both on Philadelphia in this game as well. Although there probably will be some drama, I think, because there are 2 factors that go into this that I wonder. It's kind of like worlds colliding, George, in this game. The Packers get off to slow starts and have to climb their way back into games. And the Eagles always get off to slow starts too and seem to dominate in the second half. So I actually like the first half under in this one between these 2 teams. Packers and Eagles first half under would be my play. I will take the Eagles to win. And I give Jordan Love a lot of credit for being transparent during the week and speaking to reporters. But George, my gosh, for him to say that he still has pain in his elbow when throwing a football, I guess he'll play and he'll be fine, but that just doesn't seem sustainable to me.
It's certainly not good. And I love your play on the first half under, by the way. I think it's fantastic. As you said, both teams struggled. Neither team generally comes out hot. You have to worry about Love. I worry about Hurts too, right? He's been out a couple of weeks here. What if he takes a hit, a tush push and all that, and he gets another concussion quickly, whatever it might go there. So I worry about the quarterbacks a bunch here. Green Bay has not played well. All right, no Christian Watson. We discussed that earlier here. It's going to be a heavy Josh Jacobs game. Has to be. I think if LaFleur's doing anything else, he's just doing this. This is going to be his team a disservice here. It has to be a heavy Josh Jacobs game, and he has to be good. He has to keep them in second and short. If not, I think this game could get away from them actually here. I don't see Green Bay doing a Philadelphia with 2 versus 7 matchup, what they did at Dallas last year, where they just blew the Cowboys out here. I think this game is somewhat close here, but I think Philadelphia does pull away at the end. I think they are the better team. Give me the Eagles.
Okay. We're on the same side there. Now, Commanders Buccaneers, if you missed earlier in the show, I am going to take Washington and these 3 points. I think the Commanders not only win this week, I think if they get Philly next week, I think they got a shot, and I'll take them to win against Philadelphia next week too. To me, this is going to be the one story of the season, the biggest surprise playoff team. Maybe Denver also in that category since the beginning of the season, but I don't think anybody looks at Denver as a threat to win. I think the Commanders are a serious threat to win. Also, George, the Commanders are a serious threat to lose because they play every game right down to the final play. So I think a kick in line is what wins this game. I think it's going to be very tight. I don't think as many points as the total are going to be scored here. I understand the defenses, are not that good, but it is, coaching does tend to tighten up this time of the year. And I actually think Vikings-Rams has a chance to have more points than this Commanders-Buccaneers game. But I am going to take Washington plus the points to move on. And when we're back on the show next week and it's Philadelphia, I'm going to take Washington to beat Philadelphia and play for the NFC Championship as well.
Certainly don't agree with the next week thing, but I picked the Bucs to win this game, but would I be surprised if Washington does? No. And that's a good thing, by the way, because I think that means I expect a close, entertaining game tomorrow night, which I do. I think it's going to be a fun game. All right. I think it really is. I think they do go over the total here. They played each other in week 1, and this doesn't matter. That was 4 months ago. No one cares. But they did play each other in week 1. Tampa blew their doors off 37-20. But both teams have completely changed by then. Tampa's secondary is a mess. I went through that earlier in the show here. So I think Washington can throw the football against them. I think McLaurin is going to have a really good game here. I like Zach Ertz in this contest as well. I don't trust the running game for Washington at all. Baker Mayfield should also have success throwing the football. It may not be to Mike Evans, depending on what's going to go on with Lattimore. They're going to have Lattimore travel with Evans here, which I don't think they will, but maybe. History tells us that Evans has struggled against Lattimore in the past. Generally takes a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty or two against him as well. So I like McMillan a lot in this game also here. We all like Bucky Irving. No shock there. And I think we are going to get the over. All right, I think we're going to I don't think it's going massively over here, but I think we're going to get the over here somewhere, 31-24. This is what the score brings to me. I think points are coming in this game. It's going to be fun tomorrow night.
All right, Sunday Night Football. And then the final game of the weekend, Monday night on a neutral site field, although it is a home game for the LA Rams as they play this game in Arizona. Vikings have been the darling of the NFL all season long. We've expected them to fall apart. It really did not happen until that game against the Lions this past week. George, for me, I think personally, maybe I'll be wrong here. I think the worst team going in the NFL playoffs are the Rams. That's my opinion here. I know that you said maybe you'd back them here. I watched them play all season long. I don't know what it is, the color of their jerseys or the names on the back, but they did not play well for the majority of this season. Yes, they've had 2 or 3 games where they looked like the Rams of 3 years ago, but I'm just not seeing it. I think that Minnesota's defense is going to stop them. I don't think the Vikings are a long-term playoff team this year. I don't think so. But I think this game comes out and it's 7-0 Vikings, and then it's 10-0 Vikings, and then it's 13-0 Vikings. Rams come back, they get a touchdown, then it's like 16-7. The Rams offense is great on paper, but in the games, it's not nearly as good. I'm taking the Vikings to win this game in a game that may have some points late. I don't think it's going to be particularly exciting. I'm taking Minnesota here.
It's another game I don't feel great about taking the Rams. I am taking the Rams mainly because I think Sam Darnold has some issues in tight games and big games. He was awful, absolutely awful against Detroit on Sunday. He missed, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns. He looked terrible all around. They're missing passes all over the place here. I don't think the Rams are all that great a team. I don't. All right, they did beat Minnesota earlier in the year, 30-20, for what it's worth here. And I think we're going to get a similar score here, probably maybe even a little higher than that. So I think points are coming here as well. They better be coming, because if they're not coming, it means Darnold played like crap again. And that's not good, because I don't think Aaron Jones is good enough at this point in his career to lead this team here. So I'm going to go with the Rams because I don't trust Sam Darnold here. If he played decent last week, I probably would be going the other way around here, because I don't think the Rams are all that great either. I just worry about Sam Darnold. If he's not playing well, it don't matter what the rest of the team is doing.
I think whoever wins this game is losing the next week. That to me is the one flag that I would plant going into next week. All right, we'll have some buy or sell coming up next on FST.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz as we get ready to wrap up the show and send you off at 10 o'clock Eastern. Time now to play a little game of buy or sell. All right, the Buffalo Bills got to be a little upset here. One of the best teams in the NFL this season. They did not have a player that was first team All-Pro. Buy or sell, George? The Bills should have had a first-team All-Pro player. Is this buy or sell?
Well, we discussed Josh Allen earlier, right? And I think Lamar Jackson, I have no problem with that. I mean, James Cook, the problem is there are plenty of other good running backs there, right? I mean, as far as Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, so should they have had one? No, I don't think they should have had one. And I just think it's such a negative because it's not. We're not saying the Bills that Cook didn't deserve it or Allen didn't deserve it. It was just someone who ought to be better this year. Just who cares? You had great years. All right, so you didn't quite make first team All-Pro. It doesn't mean you didn't have a good year, and it's not. It doesn't mean we're denouncing you, saying, "Oh, you weren't very good." No, you were great. You were absolutely great. Both these guys were great. You're talking, tell me that I wouldn't want Josh Allen on my team. Of course we would want Josh Allen on our team. But the numbers tell you that Lamar Jackson played a little bit better here. It's a little bit better. And both, as you said earlier, neither team goes anywhere with the backup quarterback. All right, with Trubisky and or Josh Johnson there. So it is what it is here. Should they have had? No, I'll sell this.
Yeah, I'm going to sell too. When George and I were younger and the All-Pro teams meant something and the Pro Bowls meant something, we could name each year who made the Pro Bowl. There were bonuses given out. I mean, these things just don't mean what they used to in the National Football League. I mean, you can only pick one quarterback. To me, I don't get wrapped up in this anymore. I used to pay a lot more attention to it, but I think the average fan, if you said who was the Pro Bowl quarterback or the All-Pro quarterback, you wouldn't even know. And I don't know how they even tie bonuses to these things. So I'm going to sell. Obviously, it should have been Allen. And, of course, if they had two quarterbacks, then he would be on there. Much ado about nothing for me. I will sell. Nobody on Buffalo outside of Allen would deserve it. Cook had a really good year. Maybe they should just change the system to quarterbacks, to running backs, to receivers, etc., like a regular NFL team. All right, it was announced earlier this week that Deshaun Watson had a setback, another Achilles tear, which is going to sideline him potentially for the entire season coming up in 2025. Remember, we're now in January. it's usually a 6 to 9 month injury at the very least. So that does not put him back on the field until at least the halfway point, if not longer. We expect the Browns to draft a quarterback. Buy or sell, Deshaun Watson will play another game, one more game in a Cleveland Browns uniform. You going to buy or sell this?
As you said, it's a 6 to 9 months injury. I just heard that they're saying 7 months, but they don't know that at this point. All right, it depends on Deshaun Watson, how fast he heals and all that. But let's just say for giggles, 6 to 9 months, 7.5 months. That means he's not ready until September, which means he starts the season on the PUP list. All right, so he's out there for another 4 to 6. Now you're talking somewhere in October. And I say this, Craig, because they have to draft a quarterback, don't they? Don't you have to draft one? And assuming you do, then by the time that rolls around, that quarterback's playing. And unless he's god-awful, you don't remove him for Deshaun. You just don't do that, right? Listen, it's Cleveland. Maybe they do that. But you can't do that. That quarterback now has to play. Deshaun's done. So I'm going to buy this. I'm going to say he does not play another game in a Cleveland Browns uniform. I think he's done. He probably should have been done anyway. He's been awful for a couple of years. It's not like he's coming up a couple of big years. He's not. I'm going to buy this. He does not play another game in a Cleveland Browns uniform.
Yeah, I mean, this is easy. Sometimes teams make mistakes. And the other big misnomer, I would say, in the NFL, and it's something we all do and we get caught up doing, is we always say that players have the worst contract in history. We go through that every year, George. And then the other thing that we do is we look at the cap and we say, oh my gosh, they can't cut the player because it's too much dead money. Right, George? We hear that over and over again. They can't trade the player. They can't cut the player because it's too much money against the cap. It's too much dead money. And what happens, George? Every single one of these scenarios, they cut the player, they trade the player, they finagle the salary cap structure. I mean, how many years do we have to go down this road? Do you remember Brock Osweiler? Do you remember Russell Wilson? These all-time bust contracts somehow get traded, moved, and cut. And the same thing is going to happen with Deshaun Watson. He's not going to play. He's going to get cut, traded, released, whatever it is. And Cleveland figures it out. They draft their quarterback at 2. Whoever that is probably has a shot to start the season because both Sanders and Ward, if either of them end there, they played their entire careers in college. Sanders was a 2-year starter. Cam Ward was a 3-year starter. So I am going to buy that sell that Deshaun Watson will play another game in a Cleveland Browns uniform. I don't think that this is happening. And by the way, I don't think he plays another game in any uniform again. Finally, let's get to the New England Patriots. They have an opening for head coach. Gerard Mayo is out. And they're looking at a lot of coaches. You hear Mike Vrabel is the one hot name for every team, it seems like, in the NFL. Vrabel, a former player with New England. Buy or sell, the Patriots have the most desirable head coaching position out there. We've got the Raiders. We've got the Chicago Bears. We've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, among some others, potentially.
Yeah, this is being brought up because of Drake May, right? That they have the franchise quarterback, which, granted, is a great first step, right? Maybe first a couple of steps there when you have the quarterback, but that's all they have. They don't have much else here. So I don't know if I'm going to say it's the most desirable. I mean, Jacksonville looks pretty good. It's certainly not the Raiders, not the Jets, not New Orleans. So I think it's close here. But I think if I had my choice, I might rather go with Jacksonville. I think Sam and I discussed this off air earlier. Mainly because you play in a weaker division, right? You go with the Patriots, you got to deal with Buffalo. Man, Josh Allen ain't going nowhere. All right, that's a problem. You go to the AFC South here. It's a weaker division here. Jacksonville, they should be able to get there. They were a good team a couple of years ago. You do have Trevor Lawrence. I'm going to sell this. I'm going to say no. So I'm 3 sells here.
Yeah, I'm buying. Why? Because I am buying ownership. And of all the places that we just mentioned, I think Kraft is the best owner of them all. Unequivocally, by the way, maybe Shad Khan being second of these, but Kraft always dedicated to winning and extremely loyal. I know not to Mayo, but some others. I am buying on that. We'll come back and wrap things up next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. Fantasy Sports Today here on Sports Grid. George and I here for the next few minutes, and then we're out of here at 10 o'clock Eastern. Joe and Matt will have another fantasy show tomorrow morning. All fantasy team in 2025. George, how many of these players did you have on your team this past season? We've got Lamar Jackson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley, Jamar Chase, Boswell at kicker. I know that that's hard to see if you're watching us on a smaller tablet. It's hard for me to see on a bigger tablet, to be honest with you, because my eyes are not as good as they were. I have Jamar Chase on one team. That's it. So how many championships did I win this year? That would be 0.
0 for me as well here. I'm sorry, though. I did win my home league. I had a big week. Like I said, that was a points league, though, not head to head for what it's worth here. So I did win that. I did not have Lamar Jackson. I stayed away from Chase because of the holdout and what was going on there earlier on. I didn't like that. Had Barkley on a couple of leagues here, including the league that I did win. Didn't have Gibbs anywhere. Justin Jefferson, the league I won, I had him. No Bowers. Did have Bijan. I think Boswell I picked up in the league at some point, and Denver, same thing. So I had a couple of these guys. It's hard to have all of them. I think 4 of them, I was counting our first-round picks. I mean, Jefferson, Chase, Barkley, Bijan were all first-round picks here. So if you had all, I guess you played in a league where you're able to trade for draft picks, or you played a very bad league. One of those, either one of those possibilities there. So hard to have the absolute perfect team.
All right, agreed. All right, let's wrap up the show with some sports. I got some pop culture for you. Time now for the Sports Grid 60.
I'm glad Craig's got pop culture. I'm not good at pop culture, not from nowadays anyway. I'm looking forward to the games this weekend. This is my second favorite NFL weekend of the year here. I do prefer the divisional round of the playoffs. This way we get the 2 best teams that are, Kansas City and Detroit in the mix as well. But as I said earlier, we pretty much have football from 4:30 Eastern today, pretty much through midnight on Monday. It's just fun, right? You go to bed tonight, and hey, go to sleep, you wake up tomorrow, there's more football. So it's a fun weekend. I do like the way the NFL does this. May not be fair to the 2 teams playing Monday night that they get a little rest. The winner gets a little rest, less rest going into next weekend's games. But I think it's great for sports fans here. So I am so much looking forward for football starting in about 6.5 hours.
Yeah, I am too. My pop culture this week is something that I experienced that I know everybody else has, but I guess I was just like late to the party. which was, football has slowed down and college football has slowed down. So basically it's back, me waiting for baseball season to start and finding things that I stream and movies that I haven't seen. I am so late to the party. I'm embarrassed to say that I found this movie. I was like, let me stream John Wick. Everyone's looking at me like, oh my gosh, you didn't see any of those? I didn't see any of the John Wick movies. They're really good. I know it's sad. I'm, the last one to the party here, but I watched the first one, watched the second one. I even had time to watch the third one, which I never would have been able to do during a college football and pro football season. The only problem is the fourth one came out so recently, George, that it's not really available for free anywhere. So it's just so hard for me to hit that $3.99 rent. Like I know it's not a lot of money, but it's like I pay for so many of these streaming options. Like there's gotta be a way to watch this for free, but there isn't. So that's the last one in. Have you seen those movies, George, or are you late to that party too?
I was probably late to it too, but I saw them a while back. So I'm better than you in this case. But they were entertaining. They were fun. And I did see the fourth one as well. So I guess we did. I have all these streaming options as well. Remember, the game tonight's on Prime, by the way. So
I know.
Be able to watch. So I do have it. I will be watching. And yes, hey, listen, they were entertaining. The wife and I last night, we watched Deadpool and Wolverine. It only came out a couple of months ago, so we're not that far behind. Right. But, we watched that last night.
Yeah, it's just hard for me to get into these things during the heat of the football season. Baseball, people are like, oh, you must be super busy during baseball. But baseball is like literally much easier because the fifth inning, a lot of these games, you know what's going to happen, and that's it. All right, coming up later today, 10 o'clock Eastern, guess who's standing by? It's our team with Pro Football Today. Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, Joe Lisi, they're up and ready to go in cold New Jersey, ready to deliver the content. And then in-game live game day today for game one. It's Wetzel and Joe Madden. And then tonight, Brady Cannon is back on the air along with Adam Kaufman. They've got you prepared for the evening game between the Steelers and Ravens. That'll do it for our show once again today. George and I will be back next week. George, have fun this weekend. I'll see you back here next week.
Absolutely. Everybody enjoy the games.
All right. For George Kurtz and for our producer, Sam, once again doing a stellar, fantastic job. I'm Craig Mish. We'll see you back here next Saturday morning for our division round here on Fantasy Sports Today.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.